Poster session is over. Either that or all the ice cream has melted because we got a whole bunch of folks here. So thank you so much for joining us. I think we're going to go ahead and get started. My name is David Balenson. I'm with the University of Southern California Information Sciences Institute. And I'm here with Anita Nikolich from University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. You met Anita earlier today. She moderated the really cool panel that we had on the threat of AI. And our third colleague, Sagar Samtani from Indiana University. This is actually his brainchild, and Anita and I have just been helping him with this. Unfortunately, he's on sabbatical, and he started a new job since we dreamed up this idea and proposed it, and it got accepted. So unfortunately, he's not here today. So Anita and I are the ones who are going to orchestrate everything that we are doing. The emphasis here is on applied AI for operational cybersecurity. But as you're going to find out, it's not necessarily just focused on AI. That's part of it, but it doesn't have to just be about AI. Just to give you a sense of what we've got in store for you this afternoon, we're going to spend the first hour, I guess it's now about 50 minutes, just doing some scene setting. So I'm going to do this brief introduction, and then Anita's going to come up and she's going to share some thoughts and ideas with you as well. And then we are going to have a recorded talk, the vision of an OmniSOC. So if you're not familiar with OmniSOC, it is a security operations center that's been set up specifically for the educational community. I guess it's run out of Indiana University, and it's sort of aligned with the whole Trusted CI endeavor. There's been presentations on it at Trusted CI webinars and at past Trusted CI cybersecurity summits and the like. And we invited Brad, but unfortunately he couldn't be here. He's the former CIO at Indiana University. He was instrumental in the development of the OmniSOC. And so he was nice enough to do a short 20-minute recorded talk. And so we're going to listen to that. And then what we wanted to do was invite any of you who might have thoughts or ideas around this that you'd like to share with the group. So we're hoping that some of you are operational. I noticed we have a lot of the students here as well, but others who are here who have operational roles at universities, if you'd like to get up and just share a few words about your perspective on some of the issues and challenges, questions that we're going to raise, we would give you that opportunity. And if not, then we would just go ahead and go right in to the working session and just sort of surround the break with the working session. During the working session, we're going to start with just some open discussion. We've put together a series of questions that we think will prompt a lot of great discussion amongst everybody in terms of, what are the needs, what are the requirements, what are the challenges, what are some possible ways to address some of these challenges, what are you seeing in the operational environment, things to that effect. And so we'll have some open discussion. And then with an eye towards ultimately producing a concrete output for NSF, we'd like to actually produce a report. And we want to invite all of you to help be co-authors and help produce that report. So we actually have a Google document that will invite all of you to open and just share your thoughts and ideas. So if you don't want to stand up and share, and if you don't want to raise your hand and share, if you better, writing your ideas down, then you just open the document and start dumping stuff in there. And then after the fact, Anita and I will go in and we'll review and we'll edit and, pretty print everything, so to speak, into a report that we can give to Trusted CI and to the National Science Foundation. And then we'll wrap up. This doesn't necessarily have to take the next 3 hours minus the 30-minute break. We can go, sort of rock until we drop. And once we sort of peter out, if we don't have energy or ideas, and if it's not 5 o'clock, we can go ahead and end early. We've got the party later tonight, so we've got to conserve a little bit of energy. So any questions, reactions to that? anything from Anita? She's been mostly just sitting there nodding at everything that I've said.
My slides.
So, all right, so then let's get to the actual substance. So I guess I'd actually, if you don't mind, you can come up and speak to this.
So this is the flip side of, Sagar and I did a workshop. Dave was doing his own workshop at the SATSI PI meeting. SATSI is a big meeting for academics and security research. How many people here are students? I was curious. Oh, awesome. How many are at a facility doing cybersecurity, like operational cybersecurity? Okay. And any faculty or researchers? Oh, good. We got a great mix. So this is the flip side of a session we did at the SATSI meeting. And I think Dr. Alshayer, you were there at the meeting, which was that session was all about, okay, the crux of the problem being all these tools that have surged many times in academia. We have these really awesome applied research tools that are developed by faculty and students. They're thrown over to operators who are like, this isn't useful to me. So part of our charge of the first workshop is really understanding kind of what academic researchers need to help guide their tool development. The flip side is this, our workshop here is kind of what, when you get solutions, what kind of problems are you actually facing and where would tools help? So what we're looking for, as Dave said a little broadly, is kind of what are the realistic roles that AI tools can play? As you heard in the panel this morning, it might not be to find some exotic model of tech. It might just be your SOC alerts are like, you get a ton of these things. It is hard to suss through false positives. Maybe you just need help with that. So that's kind of the overall where we're going. Some common impediments, at least that I've seen as an operator, are UX UI is sometimes awful. It's not very usable. In R&E, data access sharing is sometimes hard for just artificial barriers. Sometimes our infrastructure capabilities don't allow us to do this. So this is kind of our overall description. So here's some of I'm going to move this out of the way, some of the key questions you want to get to today. So ultimately, the takeaway, as Dave said, is a report. We're going to go back to NSF to say, we would like to strengthen the bond between cybersecurity operators and academics doing kind of applied research and tools. Oftentimes the two don't mix, and we therefore drop a ton of really good work. So the key questions here today are there existing, probably there are many existing, or new security problems where you think AI techniques can help? AI has been used for many years for malware detection, email quarantining, but I'm sure there's others you see that we haven't seen. Have you encountered any Gen AI-based threats? So I also work in the area of deepfake detection. And as we talked to, we had this interesting tool, came out of academia. We talked to a bunch of SOCs and they were like, we just don't see deepfake pictures or stuff. Your tool's not going to help me anyway. So have you encountered any Gen AI-based threats? What are some barriers if you have ground truth data, if you're collecting security data? Are there barriers to sharing this data with researchers? Have you tested some of these, AI-based tools that many of our CISOs buy? What do you think about them? And then how can we bring, literally, how can we bring researchers and operators together to have this common understanding? Is it people sitting in SOCs? Is it, students going to industry? How can we build this common vernacular? And then maybe some success metrics that would make that successful. So I think we're going to do.
Before we do that, I thought we might actually go around and do introductions.
Yes, I'm going to put this up real quick.
Yes, you go ahead.
We have a QR code we have a shared Google Doc. If you don't want to, if you're shy or if you have some thoughts you don't want to put out there, if you would put your name, that would be helpful just so we can see, and again, put your name on the report. So you can go there, and then David, you're going to go around the room for some intros.
Yeah, I think it would be good. Help break the ice if everybody would just go around and briefly introduce themselves. I'm actually going to start with the man hiding in the back of the room. We always start in the front, so you might as well start in the back. But just real quick, name, affiliation, and why did you come to this particular workshop?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Rapisi. I'm with the Department of Defense Cybercrime Center, specifically working in vulnerability disclosure management and help run the VDP program out of there. So mostly just curious about what other folks are speaking to with the AI.
Most of our stuff is like we're looking at AI and stuff that time. It's like
Automations on this. I'm mostly here.
experience by 2 months.
Hello, everybody. This is AJ Albayati. I'm a student at the University of Texas, San Antonio. I'm a junior. I study computer science, cyber operation tracks, and yeah, I'm excited to be here with everybody else to gain the most knowledge I can. So yeah.
Hi, my name is Jim Berhalter. I'm the Director of IT at the National High Magnetic Field Laboratory, and this talk seemed a little bit more interesting than the cybersecurity for high-speed networks one. So.
Hello, everybody. I'm Nizar Al-Sharari. I'm from Jackson State University. I'm doing research in cybersecurity infrastructure.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ali El-Sanaid from West Virginia State University. I'm the director of the Cybersecurity Innovation Center there. I have the reason why I'm here today just to discuss the question because I have 12 researcher in my team, and I hope from the today lecture I'm going to come up with new ideas for the research. And I believe the questions that we're going to come up with at the end, it's going to be each one of them is going to be a possible topic for research.
Hey everyone, my name is Samit Bhattacharya. I'm from Fayetteville State University in North Carolina. I'm a full professor of computer science. I'm more into AI than cybersecurity, but I was one of the founding faculty for our bachelor's in cybersecurity program. And we may soon end up opening a graduate program in cybersecurity. So I'm here because I'm curious about like what I can take back.
Hello, everyone. I'm Riddhi. I'm a student at the University of Cincinnati. I'm currently enrolled in the undergraduate program in my sophomore year. I'm doing my major in IT with software development and data technology track. And I'm here because I want to learn about AI.
Hi, my name is Christian. I'm a junior at the University of Texas at San Antonio. My major is computer science and just interested in learning about AI.
Hi, I'm Amelia. I'm from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I'm currently a senior studying computer science and mathematics, and I'm here because I also want to learn more about AI for my AI class right now.
I'm a culture and cybersecurity student at Northeastern in Boston. And I'm just curious to hear some security perspectives on AI as opposed to the developer perspective.
Hi, my name is Hiroki Takakura. I'm a professor at the National Institute of Informatics from Japan. So I'm a director of the Strategic Cyber Resilience Research and Development Center in our research laboratory. So I'm looking forward to this new technique to find battle with cyber attack to find out a new mitigation and new countermeasure systems to which deploy AI frameworks. Thanks.
Okay, thank you for coming such a long way to be here.
Hi, I'm Steve Barnett. I work in one of the major facilities in Ice Cube. I'm from UW-Madison. I manage all of the research infrastructure that we operate for Ice Cube. So cybersecurity is one of about a dozen hats I wear on any given day. So I'm interested, AI is all the great hype and we have to analyze logs and do a bunch of crazy stuff. And boy, do we have to spend money doing it. So I'm curious to kind of find out what people are doing, in the actual more research part of that world.
And they're very interested in learning about the challenges that you face in doing the kinds of things we just talked about. So hopefully we'll be a perfect match.
Thank you. Dan Arnold, I'm a research scientist at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, adjunct professor of civil engineering at UC Berkeley. I work on applied AI for operational cybersecurity for critical infrastructure, but I don't know anything about computer networks, so very much OT side. I'm on the Trusted CI staff. Looking forward to seeing what this workshop's all about.
I'm Kyle Early. I'm at the Ohio Supercomputer Center. I'm an HPC security engineer. So my day-to-day is I live and breathe security, all things security. And the reason I'm here is I'm the sole security guy at my center. So I could obviously use AI tools to hopefully give me some free time that I don't have. So.
Or small computer.
So my name is Xin Liang. I'm from WashU, Washington University in St. Louis, not the University of Washington. Different. So I'm a solution architect, and my role is to help researchers use the infrastructure. And the other role I have is we have a secure enclave. I'm the community member for the secure enclave, so I want to learn how AI can help in that area.
Howdy, I'm Brad Barber, the other Texan in the room. So I work in compliance and risk assessment, and I'm just here to learn what I can about AI and how it relates to compliance and cybersecurity.
I'm Sam Chan. I'm IT director and CISO for Giant Magellan Telescopes. So I head the IT department and the security, and I wanted to see what what we can do with AI. We've got some of it on our network infrastructure. We want to see what else we can do in the operation.
Brad.
Hello, my name is Daniel Koučil. I'm from Czech Republic, and I work for security teams for several infrastructures providing services for research and education. So I'm interested to see how AI is used for these purposes.
You're not escaping.
Hello, my name is Hawa, and I'm the cybersecurity analyst. I actually reside here in Pittsburgh. So I'm the cybersecurity analyst at the Pittsburgh Supercomputing Center. And part of the reason why I'm here is because, we're trying to get familiar with AI and cybersecurity. And so I need to report to my CISO.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dinora Castillo. I am a grad student at Johns Hopkins. So I am actually in school for AI. So I'm just here out of curiosity and want to learn more.
Sure. My name is Ihab Al-Sher. I'm a distinguished career professor at Carnegie Mellon University School of Computer Science. My area of research on applying AI-enabled cybersecurity, and I'm here to look for two things, new research ideas, as well as actually having a partner, design partner for using some of our tools here at CMU.
Fantastic. And then just to say a little bit more about myself, I mentioned I'm with University of Southern California Information Sciences Institute. So I'm the interim director for our networking and cybersecurity division. We primarily do research on a whole host of different areas, including but not limited to AI and operational security. More specifically, I'm involved in a mid-scale research infrastructure project called Sphere. Sphere's actually been through the Trusted CI framework. I was in the recent ECHO cohort, which Hawa was a part of. So she helped teach us about the framework. And I'll even be talking about that experience on a panel tomorrow morning. But I have an interest across a broad range of different areas. I've collaborated with Anita on many different things. And I know Sagar, Samtani, and three of us just decided that this would be a cool thing to get together and do.
Let me introduce myself. I'm Anita Nikolich. I'm at University of Illinois. I spent most of the first half of my career in operations, in large-scale security operations, and then transitioned to academia. I have an NSF mid-scale called Fabric. I also have NSF Convergence Accelerator project where we're teaching older folks about digital threats. And I'm one of the founders of the DEF CON AI Village, which is how I know the panelists from earlier.
I was hoping you were going to mention that. If not, I was going to out you.
So we did a big generative red team last summer with the White House and DEF CON.
So before we go into the introductory talk, I would like to ask all of you, I have a good memory, but it's not that good. So I don't remember all of your names and your affiliations. I'm getting the signal to stay in front of the camera, and I'm getting the thumbs up. So please go ahead and open this document. And our first exercise is to put your name, your affiliation, and if you're willing, to put your email in there so that we can reach out and communicate with you later, including sharing the report or asking any questions or things to that effect. And I know some of you have phones, you don't have laptops, but you should be able to do it with your phone. I go in and Google Doc all the time from my phone, which is actually pretty cool. So just to start, let's go ahead and do that. Please. We'll give you a couple of minutes to do that. And I want to go ahead.
Is it a spreadsheet or just a Word document?
It should, so this should take you to a folder, and within the folder should be these these slides, and then a Google Doc that has the notes into which you would put the email. Oh, so that's.
So you put the email at the end after question 6?
Actually, at the beginning before question 1. But probably it doesn't matter where you put it. If you put it somewhere, I'll grab it.
Okay. That was too fast. Can you double back?
Yep. All right. Yeah. So some folks have found it. Thank you.
And if you got a favorite project or papers you're working on or something that will help us, just include in that, feel free to put that in too.
Right. And then flash the QR code again, please. And I'm going to get that signal again. I don't like blocking the. So, okay, great.
Is there any way that we can zoom it all? There we go.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks. Yeah. So hopefully they won't figure out this is just a ploy to get them to open up the document.
We'll put it up after the talk as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just realized something. Where I meant to. All right. Everybody good? Anybody need it? We'll go one more minute.
Just make sure the sound works real quick. Do we need to?
Oh. Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
Sound. Sound.
They optimize for video sharing?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They are.
See if it's on Zoom.
And
President for Information Technology and CIO at Indiana.
all right.
Set to make it full screen as possible.
Yep.
It's cool. Here we go.
All right, we ready to go? So there's a slight echo here. I probably need to turn. There we go. All right, we're going to go ahead with the video. So it should be about 20 minutes and should be pretty interesting. It's pretty interesting what Brad did and what he's going to have to say about it. So here we go.
14 years, I was Vice President for Information Technology and CIO at Indiana University. And it's my pleasure to be with you today for this workshop, even in a short video, to share with you something I'm super passionate about. In that time as Vice President for IT, I got to work with a lot of great people in building out and growing the global NOC, increasingly work that we did around Jetstream, and people who are smart from all over the university doing a lot of things. But as we continue to think about how to build cybersecurity and to innovate in research in an increasingly dangerous world, the topic I want to talk to you about began really with a Trojan horse in 2016. Now, it was a Trojan horse that looked more like this than the one you may have first thought about, But this Trojan horse was at the Cyber Week conference in Tel Aviv in 2016. And I've told people before that I went to that conference as a CIO thinking a lot about cybersecurity, and that, I went over scared and literally came home terrified. So when I got back, this was July of 2016, it really had hit me just how much the game had changed and escalated for us to be able to secure the resources of the university research community, and then even out beyond that, things with global NOC and federal facilities, et cetera. So at the Big Ten University CIO meeting that was at Rutgers University that summer, the CIOs, we had a really deep conversation, and we came up and said, look, here's the core hypothesis we need to try to figure out. There's going to be a tremendous economies of scale in the effective use of resources for the escalating cybersecurity needs that we have of all of our campuses. And the challenge was going to be, what would we do about it? How could we go about doing it? And we also knew that we had tremendous research capability and firepower, and that there was lots of data out there. Without any kind of intervention, we also knew that for sure we would go buy more subscriptions, more cloud thingies. We would probably be giving our data away, and then we'd be having our researchers beg for various, data sets from companies. We knew there was economy of scale. If you're at Nebraska and you're really trying to hire cybersecurity people, you probably got a limited talent pool locally. Of course, remote work accelerated and helped some of that. But we came together literally within about 6 months of that with a plan to launch the OmniSOC. And some of you know about that. The OmniSOC is it's a cybersecurity operations center. And we put it together and figured out how to build this thing on a scalable, extensible, built to last financial model. So we really came out with two key goals of building this sector specific, that is for research and education, building a sector specific security operations center that would have as its only objective serving its R&E members. So goal number one coming out of that was, how do we get this thing off the ground? How do we find the funding for it, raise the capital? How do we work with getting data from our institutions into this thing? And so there's a lot of conversation, and I really want to give a shout out to our 5 launch partners, and that would be the Chief Information Officer and the CISO at the University of Nebraska, at Northwestern University, at Purdue University, and at Rutgers University, along with Indiana University. We came together, we put up the money, our teams figured out how would we do this? How would we get the telemetry data in? How would we run 24/7 eyes on glass? How would we communicate back out to heterogeneous campus environments to make this all very, very effective? So goal number one, and to the great again, the great work of the OmniSOC staff and Susan and others who are leading it now, really is operational and scalable. So we came out of the gate, we bought millions of dollars worth of equipment, we've learned how to do this, and started building out the OmniSOC. And the key point was to have it so that if we become aware of a vulnerability anywhere amongst the OmniSOC members, if something doesn't look quite right at Northwestern or here at IU, that we could diagnose it and put that word back out. And so we could work to mitigate that bad thing that was going on everywhere. So this is the big picture. And this is really from the original drawing, with the exception of we chose our partner there in Elastic. And let me walk through where we're at with it, what has been done, and then we'll talk about goal 2, which is really the reason I have some passion in wanting to talk to you today, is how can this workshop community help us reach goal 2? So let's just make sure everybody first understands what we're talking about. We have a large number of campuses or federal labs or other partners. I think we've got about 34 members of the OmniSOC right now. They each have some gear. They have a network that they're securing. Telemetry comes off of it. They may have a campus security operations center or cybersecurity operations center. And so we worked on how would we get that data and aggregate it into a big bucket. Now, a lot of data comes in there, of 30, 40 terabytes a day, a billion incidents come in. So you were growing that data set there really quickly. And the view is that we can see and detect nefarious actions going on. So you see the 2 red boxes there is threat analysis, constant sorting out, finding the real signals in that, not just all the false alarms, and then making decision of what's really the real deal or not. Now notice that is enriched with information from other ISACs, commercial sources, government sources to make these decisions. Ultimately, some advice is going back out and it's communicated back out to the SOC at Rutgers University or at the University of Wisconsin or one of the federal labs. And so that's bidirectional communication because sometimes, they may say, oh yeah, our medical center, we get this weird stuff coming off of them. We know exactly what that is. I see that you see it and it looked like a problem to you, but we know exactly what that is. So it is a bidirectional communication, or those campus subscribers, they're reaching in and saying, we're worried, we see something going on. Can the OmniSOC people look at it? And the OmniSOC people, just for a reminder, this is 24/7, 365, eyes on glass, watching for what's going on here, doing assessments, knowing from others' data sources something that we need to be looking for. Now, where we really want to go from there is how do we engage the research community? And that is building out more of this big black box up here for automated mitigation actions. Now, I don't know how close we can get to really automating mitigation actions, but we know with the acceleration of AI, a lot of things are not going to be, a lot of things will be happening that human pace will not be enough. So we have this tremendous opportunity then to really work on goal 2. And we've started that at IU, and that is goal 2 is how do we engage cybersecurity researchers? We have such a wealth of cybersecurity researchers, our graduate students, our faculty who thirst and long to get big data sets, big real data sets coming in like the OmniSOC has. So the OmniSOC is, it's got this extraordinarily large sensor array picking up all of this telemetry from hundreds of thousands of network connections and devices simultaneously. But the challenge is the OmniSOC rightfully was principally in first order to prove that it could work. It was built out to meet the needs of operational cybersecurity. And the OmniSOC is doing that across small institutions, large ones, facilities, NSF funded projects, etc. Where the opportunity for this workshop and for you is to think about, okay, if we have that big bucket of data, how do we get it into researchers' hands in a responsible, policy compliant way that can make sense to them, and we really can work to accelerate our research insights from it. Now, for a lot of researchers, they say, this is great. I have a thumb drive. Could you just download it all? No, we can't. So first, there's a really large data sets coming through here. They have to be able to make sense. And the OmniSOC has not principally been staffed with enough data liaisons. to work with various research requests. We've been able to do a few here at IU over time, but in the scaling up of the OmniSoc, we just weren't into goal 2 yet. So right now we have a position posted for our first OmniSoc Research Data Liaison. And this person will jointly work within the command and control structure of the OmniSoc and the cybersecurity people there, and will be the liaison to work with researchers, particularly in the data science and artificial intelligence lab, as we work that out right out of the beginning. But I see this as a tremendously scalable opportunity, not only for the OmniSoc as the group of partners, the investments here at Indiana University, but also for any other SOCs that may have been built at other institutions. How do we leverage the dual value of this tremendous network of sensors and operational cybersecurity? We have about 30 staff members in the OmniSoc right now, and then enable it to be used by researchers in a policy compliant way to advance the frontiers and the knowledge around effective and emerging cybersecurity practice. I think that also cuts over into how do we make SOCs more effective themselves, and things that we can learn about the bi-directional translation of effective research practices translating back into the operations of the OmniSoc and other R&E SOCs and other commercial SOCs, perhaps downstream. I think this is squarely in the research mission to protect the nation, to protect and scale our critical infrastructure. And I hope in this workshop, you will take that challenge and think about how would you as researchers interact effectively with a SOC that is compiling these gargantuan data sets, which can eat you out of, house and hard drive over time. So we don't keep everything forever. But how would this grow a body of highly accessible, again, policy compliant research uses? What would be needed? And that's the invitation to you for this workshop, at least from me and our team with the OmniSoc and here at IU. How can we get better at doing this and making this truly an amazing asset for R&E?
Okay, great. So did that make sense? Yeah. Let me turn off the speaker here. Brad was sort of the brains behind putting together the OmniSoc. He worked with all these other universities, as he said, and he put together this incredible resource. They have access to all this data that they collect through all the different instrumentation that they do. And now they want to be able to engage with the research community, leverage that in order to create new capabilities, new tools that can then be transitioned back in to the operations centers, both within individual universities, at OmniSoc, and possibly even beyond in industry. What's that? Oh, okay. So at that point, what I was going to do is ask if there's anyone who's interested in presenting any of the work that they've done, either from the perspective of an operations center that you might be running at a university, or from the perspective of a researcher who's been looking at some of these types of challenges. And you can either, you have a short presentation that you want to...
I need a few minutes for the presentation to come up, but I can.
I unfairly asked him to do this, but got a lightning talk coming up on some applied AI, a research that hopefully be transitioned to practice. And I think maybe just to talk about it, maybe get some feedback.
Okay, so while we're waiting for that, then I guess I'd like to ask some of the folks in the audience, based on what you just saw, how much of that can you relate to? And do you have anything that you would add to the challenges that Brad mentioned? So let me first ask some of the operational folks here. Reactions, additions to what you heard.
If we're not a member, how do you connect to this?
To the Omni.
You have to be.
The OmniSOCs.
So
So how's your institute connect and become part of the OmniSOCs
OmniSOC.
monitoring?
That's a good question. I don't know how to connect to the OmniSOC, but perhaps Anita knows a little bit about it.
We have echoes here going on a little bit. So OmniSOC is a paid for service. It's essentially like a higher ed version of an outsourcing a security provider. And the way they price it is annually based on the amount of storage you take or storage you use. So for example, I have a mid-scale called Fabric. We don't need a ton of storage. It's a research project, but we don't have enough money to hire a security person or two. So we went to OmniSOC. We said, we'd like to get a quote. Here's the devices we have. What do you charge? I don't know if there's any OmniSOC people here, but it's an annual contract that you sign for them to monitor. And then they do essentially like tier 1 and tier 2 security alerting, and they will come up with a workflow with you. That's OmniSOC. And part of the deal is when you sign up, you agree to share data. So that value proposition Brad talked about. So if you're a member, you agree that your data will contribute to others. Does anybody need the QR code back again? So if you put your name in there, I kind of unfairly asked Dr. Al-Shayir here too. He's got an emerging tool that if I'd be interested to get some feedback on. So.
I can.
Ready?
Okay.
Okay, and then he's going to have you join us.
Okay. Right.
You have any sound with you?
No sound. No.
Okay. Yeah.
Does anybody here use OmniSOC besides us? Besides Cube? Does anybody else here use OmniSOC? I know some pretty big institutions have started to use that. It's just, there's lots of economies of scale, this year at Security Center.
Is that you? Sure. Let's make sure. I don't see you. Right.
Okay.
Let me look.
I can recognize this, right?
And you to share it, yeah. And share.
Oh, I share. Okay.
Yeah. Same thing.
Mhm. There you go.
Okay. There you go. There you go. Not bad.
Okay, so just as an introduction, if one of the really, I think, very nicely connected with the theme of this workshop, and specifically helping threat hunters and incident responders and SOC operations, is to automate the entire process from sense making to decision making. Sense making means analyzing information out there. And there's huge tons of informations that talk about incidents that happen to your neighbors. Okay, so very similar systems, very similar kind of business, similar profile in terms of threat profile or configuration profile. So while we're waiting for this to come to you, if you can learn from your neighbor's incidents. But the problem with this is many of these incidents are written in a dense reports that goes for many pages, go 50, sometimes 40, 50 pages. And they are usually understood by only analysts who are experienced in the field. And it takes days, if not weeks, to analyze the report and find out what attack vectors are, then find out what are the corresponding configuration and security controls, then figuring out where to do this in your network. So by that time, the attacker is already gone. So how we can automate this process from sense making, looking at these reports, incident reports, which is many of them are available publicly and some of them are actually subscription based, all the way to configuration and mitigation through the security controls. So one of the things that we have done here, and this project is working with the CIS, and if you are familiar with CIS, they are the kind of a non-for-profit organization that they work with NIST and other federal governments to help private sectors to have their security posture up to speed and up to the standard based on the security controls they provide. So here what you can see that we have a security report that comes into our tool, what we call a TTB Sense tool. And this security report will be immediately analyzed, and analyzed in a very quality fashion. Means if you can see here, what we construct is the attack graph with all the attack vectors associated with the attackers. We only focus on the actionable attack behavior. The non-actionable attack behavior, it does not give you any clue what to do. For example, malware seeks or target sensitive data. What you're going to do with this malware? Every malware goes with sensitive data. So we're looking for something that's actionable, and also we create a complete logical graph that shows where the attacker can stand from and where it goes to. This is maps to MITRE attack. What you can see here, this is maybe a small picture, is actually it's MITRE tactics and techniques. So what we read from the report is immediately mapped to the high-level TTPs of MITRE, and then from this we can now have something that's mature or enriched enough to go and find out what are the security controls that are the most relevant for this attack. So that's the difficult task for many enterprises and for SOCs. So what should I touch in my network? What security controls need to be tuned to protect from these particular incidents, and then creating playbooks of configuration and courses of action from this to enforce these security controls or maybe enhance them. So example of this, it could be something like this. I have put an example here. Example of this. So for example here, let's say we have a report here. Okay. This is a report. I don't know how to get rid of this, maybe. Yeah. So this is a report says that, okay, the attacker is trying to do ransomware that's for Windows and also exfiltrate sensitive data by doing what? So exploiting a vulnerability in RDP and gain initial access, followed by either using PowerShell scripts to download and execute ransomware payload, and using Memcads for credential stealing. Okay, so I'm lost. I'm just looking at this report. So what should I do? Where should I start? And by looking at this kind of report and then run it through this tool, we're going to have something like this. This is our vision of this, what we have. So we now, first thing, we actually identify the actionable behavior. Okay, the attacker is looking to exfiltrate data, and RDP is involved. PowerShell will be executed. So we know what kind of TTP from MITRE that we map to. So we know the mitigation, we know what to check, what not to check. Maybe it's already mitigated. Maybe you already have something in place. Okay, this is why MITRE TTP here is important to understand what to be validated, what not, what to be enforced. And then what security controls is involved, what courses of action, this is for Windows, what courses, what configuration need to be done to emphasize, for example, here for RDP, we're trying to isolate those RDP enabled devices and change Windows Defender in the fly and give implication and justification of that. So this kind of process, if it's done with full visibility and at the same time automated, it will be very powerful, especially if it's done in a large scale for many of the reports that you can see. So this is a glimpse of one use case of this tool, but there are many other use cases. But and I mean, I thought maybe I'll share this. Thank you for asking me for sharing this. And another way also, in many cases, SIM might gives some early indication of these attacks. So how would you know that an alert coming from a SIM is actually related to this incident or some of the other incidents? So by doing prediction and connecting alerts from the SIM and CTI reports, it will also give another interesting, important hint on how to be more proactive. That's maybe what I have here. Thanks.
So that's a really great example of, as we're thinking about transitioning some of this work to a real operations center, or that's useful to you all to get some feedback, so that, you know, he's not just handing you this tool. So thank you for the lightning talk. Does anybody else have any short, you know, we have a few minutes here for the break, any short lightning talks or stuff you want to talk about? If not, I think we're going to dig into the questions. Okay. Data two. Yeah. Anybody have? No. Well, let's start talking a little bit. I know there's a break in a little bit with some food, but why don't we go to question one? And in particular, I think would be useful too is if you're a student, you've probably seen some really interesting things that you can tell us about, maybe some new security problems in which you've heard about emerging AI techniques. But I think most importantly, not to lose sight that there's a lot of traditional security problems out there that we're not even equipped to handle sometimes in R&E. But any problems you think like, wow, if I just had machine learning to look at the data from, I don't know, every school in the country, as Brad thought about, you know, to kind of look at indicators. I'll stop talking. I'm just trying to get people to think.
And you can either shout it out, or we could just capture things in the document here. So some of the ones, for example, that we heard from Brad Wheeler, he talked about basically automated vulnerability mitigation.
Is that a tool, or was that like a concept?
It's a security problem in which AI techniques can help. So just trying to get to question number one. And if you were to summarize what
I can,
yours.
Yeah, I think yes, absolutely. So, vulnerabilities are often expressed in a CVS format, CVE format, and CVE description, but they are not necessarily clear enough how to be fixed. So CVE is not enough to fix this vulnerability. This one challenge here. We talk about challenges, right? If I understand so how you can gather information related to this CVE and correlate this information in a way that's actionable. Even if it's not patchable, you can do something to limit the extent and the impact of this vulnerability. So we assume I'm dealing with the hardest problem here, which is unpatched or unpatchable at this moment. So this is one of the things that we can do here.
Okay. So here's what I hear a lot that I'm a little skeptical of as a security person. The problem of, I think it was that gentleman there, it was at Ohio Supercomputing Center that said, you don't have enough people. Steve, you're like triple task. So every vendor and their brother says, I'm going to do AI augmented, you know, security, and it's going to do all your stuff. It's going to automatically do because magic. So I think what we're trying to do is separate like that sales pitch from there is a problem of capturing human heuristics. You just know with your spidey sense, if you've been doing security, it may not even match the pattern, but you know there's something there. So maybe I think capturing that is a really interesting research problem for researchers. So are there problems like that, you know, capturing human expertise, doing automated vulnerability, you know, management so that you don't have to worry about hiring people to do this? Any kind of crunchy problems you have at your facility that maybe there's some cool techniques in the future that can be tried out?
Yeah, this isn't a trick question. I mean, honestly, most of us should be able to rattle off 5 or 6 of these challenge areas or problem areas where AI could potentially help. I mean, just based on the presentations we just saw. So people still
Is someone research?
Yeah, somebody online.
Yeah, I was going to jump in. This is Brian Enser with George Washington University, and kind of along lines that you were going with the skeptical part, but also hoping that there's a solution with AI is understanding that needs to happen with detection and automated response. Just to that sales pitch of, yep, AI is going to help address the resourcing, but the reality is the patterns of what our researchers do versus what our students do versus what you would see on a typical corporate network that might be used for training look very different, and may not be very distinguishable from what is the norm for that researcher versus a real threat. And the tools, the signatures, the automated pieces that are there today tend to take a hammer to something that might not need that. And we rely a lot on the training, intelligence, and awareness of our security professionals on how to really distinguish from a real threat from something that might be a normal pattern. And it's one of the things that when I look at OmniSOC and a potential for that data to be able to help train, is that it's going to see patterns of activity that some of these companies would have never really experienced before or thought was a type of valid traffic or activity. So how will AI be trained on that type of data? How do we make sure we're feeding it the right information, and how do we have the right safety features in place that allow us to then apply some human intelligence when we are potentially addressing a vulnerability in a wrong way, or identifying it as a vulnerability when that's actually a normal pattern for us. I know we all in higher ed like to think we're unique, but we do have unique things that occur on our networks. And that for me is the area where I look at AI and see real opportunity, because you're not relying just on defined signatures and an updated signature. You're having more real-time ability to update the knowledge of what's going on within those tool sets. So more of a potential for myself.
Okay, thank you, Brian. I as you were talking, I was typing and I tried to capture that, but feel free to go in the document and review what I wrote and
yep, I will
update that to reflect what you were trying to say, what you were really saying.
We want to take a break since it is.
Oh, it is that time already.
Maybe now that we've set the stage, it'll jog there.
Okay, so we want to come back. It's technically a half-hour break. I worry that if we go away for a half hour, none of us are coming back, Anita and myself included.
Let's do like 15 minutes.
So let's do a 15-minute break. We'll come back at 3:15 and we'll go for about an hour or so in order to get through all the questions, and we won't necessarily go all the way to the 5. So we'll give you some time on the back end.
You just see the Zoom on like that.
Yep. All right. All right. We'll be back in 15 minutes.
Are people on the Zoom still?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So we started out, so everybody put their information in here. So we kind of started out talking about our very cynical view of what AI could do, but what we dream it could do. I may pick on a few friendly faces in the audience to say, like, if you had your wish list of what AI could do, what would that be? Maybe think about that. Scroll down to see these other questions if this jogs anything.
Gen AI based threats.
So yeah, I guess I'm interested in this as well as you're thinking about that. Have you encountered any Gen AI based threats? So many of our campuses use their favorite flavor of internal LLMs, which can be attacked. But is anybody seeing, whether it's somebody trying to fake the CISO at Ohio State or whatever, or has anybody actually encountered these, or is this just not an issue for this community?
So I've got an interesting one. I know from a vulnerability disclosure standpoint, our activities probably show up like within little stocks, but reports we did,
and we have got this on occasion where we would have researchers submit reports to us, code base review type vulnerability reports, and it was like total nonsense, obviously coming out of ChatGPT. And we were getting those for a time. Of course, like closing them out is invalid, but you know, from our perspective, at least on the vulnerability side and picking up those vulnerabilities and doing analysis of those vulnerabilities, that's what we've seen to a limited degree.
And so those reports were LLM generated, meaning it was like bad information, or what was the threat there?
It was obvious output from ChatGPT that like while I was referencing code base, there was no real vulnerability there. Not dissimilar to the individual who developed curl was getting similar reports in his vulnerability disclosure program and his bug bounty program, where people were taking his source code, finding quote unquote vulnerabilities, submitting them, and it was not a vulnerability. It was just output from ChatGPT.
Okay, so it's like being flooded with just crap stuff that is like not verifiable or untruthful or just wasn't helpful.
Exactly. And I mean, I guess from our perspective, from the vulnerability side, we're getting these like very long, complex disclosures, and junior analysts have problems actually working through that stuff. So we end up having to like kind of hand that off to more senior analysts. So
So would AI help you like suss through and determine this was maybe generated by a human versus just like a bot or machine, or like what would the answer be to help you?
I don't know. Honestly, this was early on. So like when it came to my desk, I took a look at it and knew pretty quickly that was, as things get more, as this technology improves, it's just going to probably get worse. So at least from our perspective.
Okay. And you know, Gen AI based threats could be, you know, with your science users, if it's, you know, clear images that are, you know, in the science data sets that are, you know, AI generated. Those kind of, you know, don't think of it as just IT, kind of fair game, any kind of Gen AI threats to the science workflow as well. So I'm going to pivot to, and feel free to, if there's like questions we didn't put down here, you know, throw out some stuff we're not thinking about, but this comes up in every single workshop I think I've ever attended for the past decade is sharing ground truth data. So maybe some kind of tangible, again, when you sign up to be an OmniSoc user, you say, I'm willing to share my data with the OmniSoc who will share with researchers. What are the barriers for, you know, many of you instrument your networks and you do security. What are the barriers that, you know, if Dr. Al-Shair wanted to come to you to say, I want this corpus of information to make my tool better, like, is it the barriers of the campus, the tool, the facility? What would make you not share the information? If, you know, if you wanted all your Zeek information or your network stuff.
Sensitivity of the information.
Sensitivity.
That's a problem with security, like healthcare as well. Like sensitivity, and there's a lack of anonymization tools that helps researchers to help enterprises to share data. So we don't even know what is the tool means to anonymize, for example, threat reports or incidents. So this will definitely boost the level of sharing that we have in students.
I know, you know, running a mid-scale facility, we are willing to share a bunch of different data, security data. We don't have anything that's PII. We're careful with some things, but you're right. There's a lack of anonymization tools. Is there anybody here who's been asked for that data, or what would, I mean, would everybody be okay with sharing certain types of, let's say, network data or firewall data or Zeek data or other types of information that would be helpful to researchers? Or is it just like your facility is just like, that's a no-go?
We've been asked a few times and we've had to say no, unfortunately. And the reason is data classification. So Ohio State classifies any security information the same as any protected data. So HIPAA, anything like that, security policy, you know, results, anything like vulnerability results, all that is classified as, you know, top level.
Okay.
What if it was anonymized?
So we did get approval with anonymization, but as you kind of said, it's hard to do, or we couldn't really find anything to do that for us today. We take a lot of work. Man.
So I would add also verification of anonymization, because many of these people, they don't trust that's how much good this anonymization data is. The verification of the anonymization is by itself another research on this.
So a lot of it's just the tooling to actually shoot, like you'd be willing to if you could strip out certain things and make it compliant. So maybe compliance issues, in other words.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. Has anyone else been asked for data?
We haven't been asked for data. I mean, I think we'd be willing to share. The only thing would be kind of related to that, whether or not, legal or
Other parts that come in, I think we could probably, we haven't gone quite so far institutionally as Ohio State is saying all of that is classified at the, the most sensitive levels. So we could probably manage it. And part of the other thing that would come in though is that frequently, I mean, if you can just pipe off a data stream and it's just going someplace else, that's fine. But I think a lot of times to be useful, people need to understand what they're looking at. And so then it becomes an engagement of saying, okay, how do you, explain to a researcher who may know the cybersecurity stuff or may know the AI and say, okay, welcome to a complex topology of storage, networking, compute, and all the interactions between all those pieces of the system, which, become relevant pretty quickly.
Yeah, so oftentimes this comes up. It's not just the data, but the context around that data is important. So Jim, have you had requests for data? Have you had conversations like this with researchers?
That's the thing. It's interesting. So it's interesting coming from, like listening to everybody here. We just don't deal with data like that. That's the interesting thing. I mean, there's so much, the HIPAA, we don't deal with FERPA. There's a lot that we don't deal with. So this is, I mean, it's a huge learning curve for me. But yeah, we don't really deal with a lot of that. A lot of our research data is public. We're not doing anything really super private. We've got IP, but for the most part,
The operation. The security.
I mean, like network traffic traces or firewall logs, like is that the stuff that since it's open science, is that stuff you could share with researchers?
We probably could, but that's the university runs all of that. We don't, but I don't see why we couldn't.
I feel like there's often a barrier with each university as there's separate, whether it's a data use agreement or how do I share data? Have you found, or Steve, have you found that like it's dealing with the university compliance office is the barrier, or like maybe they don't know how to structure it, or
always? No, I mean, I think they know how to structure it. But I think sometimes they are, even though, like say a layperson could look at this and go, okay, well, per the policies, per the rules, it looks like we could share this, but they're not willing to, out of just sort of a knee-jerk reaction that they just like as a just in case, we don't want to get in trouble, therefore we're just not going to share it, regardless of there's really nothing in there, and they just don't, they're too nervous.
it's a risk
Risk-averse environment. Right.
I'm shocked for OmniSoc, by the way, for our data that the lawyers didn't have very many issues with. I'm shocked that OmniSoc is like 38 or almost 40 entities, and they got through the legal agreements pretty easily. Maybe not easily, but they all did.
Have you had any requests for data, operational data? Any such conversations with the researchers?
No.
Right. And I'm trying to remember, you're a faculty scientist. So do you try to get data from the lab? Or are you able to have that kind of conversation with them?
Structure operators.
Mm-hmm.
That has been such a challenge.
Will synthesize data or use open data sets. We do have a few projects that are leveraging differential privacy techniques to try and anonymize certain types of data for very specific purposes. And that's the extent of the forecasts, the control data.
Okay, great. So there's a whole topic, synthesized data, right? A lot of people resort to synthesizing data. They can't get the real data. It's sort of the next best thing, though there's also a lot of challenges with synthesized data, knowing whether or not it really has the qualities you want that reflect real world data. So any thoughts or reactions to the notion of synthesized data? I know that think it's DHS S&T, their Silicon Valley Innovation Program, SVIP, has a call out right now on synthesized data specifically around the AI realm. I don't know if you're familiar with that, Anita, or not, but they just had the industry day, I think, last week. I saw one nodding head. Were you familiar with that program? No. So thoughts or reactions, synthesized data?
Yes, actually, this is interesting because it's one of the new trends today is to use the Gen AI to generate attacks that never been seen before. And that's a new opportunities by Gen AI. I think that can be really greatly exploited to beat up this zero-day attacks or one-day attacks. So I do believe this is a very good approach or orientation for research and development.
Right. So for generating attacks, but of course it's a dual-edged sword. Right. So it'll generate the attacks you need in order to test your mitigations, but it can also be used against you.
Sure. I mean, that's always double sword. The whole security double sword problem.
So one of the things that came up in our other workshop, and maybe I'll press on this issue a little bit, I added question 7, which is operator confidence in these AI tools, which I am highly skeptical of these tools that say I can replicate a human heuristics. But at the prior workshop, we had people from some big federal agencies, and they said specifically they're like security people, IT people. They just really wanted to see how'd you make this decision? Like we might trust the tool. So how did you actually make this decision that said you could emulate me as a human? And they felt like if one could do that, that would give them greater confidence. I think these tools are coming. I'm just wondering if anybody has any opinions, like what would give you confidence? Your CISO or your facility said, I bought this awesome tool. I was at RSA. Here's your tool for replacing your AI or replacing your security people. Go forth and use it. What would make you confident in that? Or is it like never, that's a no-go?
As a CISO?
As an operator. As a CISO, hey, if somebody flashes this cheaply, I'm going to put it in and it's going to replace you. Like you as the operator.
We've looked at this a little bit, and depending on the architecture of the underlying AI or ML that you're using, some of these algorithms will, you can prod them to offer up the uncertainty they're making with a certain decision, right? If you perturb the input space and you evaluate how much the output will change. So you can start, there are some techniques where you can start to sort of interrogate these things and get a sense of their confidence in their decisions. And that we think is part of the answer to building confidence on the part of the operator for adopting these things.
All right. So good for those that provide that ability, but if they don't, then that's something that needs to be explored.
Yeah, so I think, as an operator of some things that are in some ways unique and in other ways not particularly unique, one of the things that I would need for confidence is, more than just saying what is the confidence interval, being able to reconstruct, these are the features, the major features that led to the decision, and confidence is great around those. But I need to know, because the other thing I'm going to be doing is, my system doesn't stay static over time. So one of the things I need to do is learn how do I design systems in such a way that, they're resilient to these things. And if I don't understand why it found a problem and said I should fix it, then I've got a problem next year. And one of the other things that, occurred to me that when we were talking about agentic, support and looking and saying, hey, wouldn't that be great for Blue Team, right? The AI shows up and fixes my problem before I even get the phone call. But now I've got a system in a state that is unknowable, right? The machine made a decision. I don't know why. Can it tell me why? Can I change it, revert it without making things worse? Did it do the right thing? All of those questions come in, and suddenly, now it is now a black box to me. And how do I work with that tomorrow? And that's a significant problem.
I'm glad you raised that, because that's something that comes up in general around AI, but here in the context of what we're trying to do. And I think that makes it a lot more real and understand how and why that's a problem. It also, I do work on cyber experimentation, and in particular reproducible experimentation. And one of the challenges with using AI in a lot of these situations is it adds a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty and sort of non-determinism, and that you can't necessarily reproduce if you're going to actually have reproducible experiments. So it comes up in that context as well. Other thoughts, comments, reactions? Oh, no.
Of synthetic data, AI generated data, knowing what the AI did.
Related to his opinion, so to identify their status with the system, operator need operator want I think the operator want to find out which log data are required to make investigations, because we have a bunch many kinds of the log data. So operator or analyst could not find out the best log data to identify the attacks or damage or risk level. So we in our operation we ask the Gen AI which log data are required to make decisions.
So just to make sure I'm understanding, you were talking about rogue?
No, so yeah, we have a system log, IDS log, system log, but usually a system operator could not identify which log are required to make a analysis.
Okay, so which role is required to make the analysis?
That's a great one. It's just, especially if you're thin on security people, and like logs can be overwhelming, the type that you need, and you don't have to have security expertise if you're quarter time. So you're saying, could AI be used to identify the problem and what log they need to grab to look through it? Is that what I'm hearing? Or am I phrasing that wrong? Is it for log identification? Maybe.
Was it log or role?
No.
Log. Yeah. Okay.
So I guess what would it take for some of these interesting, researchy tools for people to host it or indulge some researchers in their environment? And we see this sometimes that, if you're in, I don't know, computer science at some university, you can do that within the department. But what would it take for some of these cool kind of AI-based tools for people to say, I'll test it in my environment. Maybe it's not on the front lines of operations, but I am willing to test it out. Is it just that you don't have the people and the time? There's too much crap to do? Or is it like, I don't want it to take the system down? Or what would the barrier be to, if there's some interesting applied kind of AI for security tool, what would the barrier be to using it in your environment?
Barriers to using new AI-based tools.
This gets to the question of, bringing researchers and operators together.
Either way, type it in or both. You can share it out and then type it in.
Is it a tool that needs to be trained on data or has been trained and ready to deploy?
And does that make a difference?
I think it probably does, right?
Okay.
If your tool involves an LLM, right, and then this data could make its way back to whatever.
Right.
That's a really good point.
So you would want it to be retrained under controlled.
If you want to have this conversation, you may have to have some training that's done within Omnisoft, and it's something that's secured by that.
Right.
Then you have to have resources for the training, connection to cloud, right? Connection to GPU cycles.
Right. So one of the challenges would be you wouldn't want an untrained tool coming in and training on your data, because you know what's going to happen with that data. So ideally, it should be pre-trained, some kind of safe or trusted.
But that may not necessarily be what your faculty want as part of their research.
Right. And so then how do you bridge that gap?
So, like as an analyst, obviously I would have to report to my CISO. So if there's a tool that I'm interested in wanting to explore, I would actually have to like fight for my case. So really it's just about like presenting, like giving a presentation, okay, this is what this tool does. And if this is what we're worried about, for instance, like data, well, you don't have to worry about it because this is what this company is doing to avoid any issues, right? Like policy or exploitation of our data, or is this tool going to like shut down our system, right? So in that sense, I would have to like be comfortable with the tool to be able to fight my case.
Sure. So you
Yeah.
would have to understand how it's making decisions.
Exactly.
What do you think? So for the environment, you're at PSC, you said?
Yeah, Pittsburgh Supercomputing
So
Center.
what do you think is the temperature of the PSC environment for like, there's this new cool thing, it's research focused, we're going to test it out. You're going to shepherd it to make sure it doesn't explode the environment. Have they done that? Is there a willingness to do that? Or is it like,
Well, right now we're just gauging all these AI tools, right? Like so in our troubleshooting meetings is just really just understanding AI and how it's evolving. That's where we're standing right now. We're not too much into like implementing it at the point.
so going back to question 4, are you looking, whether it's internally done or like you're thinking about it, have you tested or tried, or like, what's your focus for what would be useful at PSC? Is it for CT, cyber threat intelligence? Is it vulnerability? And like, what are you guys thinking about for uses? Is it to help the operators? Is it to help?
I would say it would be mostly to like for vulnerability evaluation.
Say again?
Vulnerability evaluation. Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's 3 of us on the team. There's the engineer, there's me, and then CISO. So we're just bouncing off of each other. And so it'd
when
be
you
nice
say
to have a hand.
vulnerability evaluation, is it like
Right now it's manual. Is that what you're asking?
no. So for vulnerability evaluation, is it that you foresee using this as like for pen testing, like a point in time, or is it constant vulnerability evaluation, or is it do you have some particular uses of it?
Yeah, I think I know what Hawa's getting at. She's saying basically they've got a team of 3 that does their best, just using their intuition to evaluate this vulnerability, figure out what it is and how it works and how to mitigate it. And if they had tools that would help enhance their ability to be able to do that, the amount of time it takes, the amount of effort.
Okay, I think did you
I was gonna say, because it says, have you tested? During the summer, I did an internship at Pitney Bowes, and we used Burp Suite Professional. So we also had the chance of using Burp GPT, which we used it to do vulnerability assessments through external websites.
Which GPT?
Burp.
Burp?
Yeah.
Is that their like proprietary Burp Suite?
It is part of the Burp Suite. So it was an API that they use just to see, just to do vulnerability scans throughout their websites. And we also used the Burp Suite community to kind of figure out like what were the differences. And with the Burp Suite community, we only found, I believe it was almost like 15 vulnerabilities. When we used the actual AI-based tools within Burp Suite, we were able to find over 300.
Wow.
Yes. So, and some of them, they did have like false positives, but it was able to kind of like give us more awareness around like what we needed to work on within the websites.
So was that just an evaluation for?
It was just an evaluation that they made us do as interns.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So is this something that one or both of you present to your CISO to say, we did this project, this is pretty awesome, you should bring it into PSE?
Yes. So that was something that we did as a the group of interns that we kind of partook in that kind of like project. And then we were able to kind of bring that information or that data to the CISO and kind of share how this can kind of enhance and how it would support making our security posture stronger.
Were you able to validate that what it found?
That's the only thing we didn't finish doing, yeah. Which is kind of like the validation. We just created reports for them, yeah. Yeah, and I still have the reports.
So the hope is that those were all
correct.
Valid.
Yes.
But
yeah.
That's very cool.
I think for us, it comes down to a combination of time and budget. It's because some tools, I mean, especially researchy can be a little bit different, right? Because if they're willing to work with you and do that kind of stuff, you may not need to pay for it. But there's, staff time to work with people and to work with the tools and learn the tools. But then for some of these, if it's something that you have to pay for, we're kind of on that nice, happy, fixed, 5-year cycle with numbers in there. So then you can't go back and say, hey, we found this awesome new tool and it only costs us 50,000 a year. So, somebody want to throw us an extra 50,000, or what are we going to pull out of the existing pot of money to replace it with this, right? So it has to generate more value than it consumes, and that can be very tricky. And especially with something like this, where it's kind of unproven, there's not a long baseline of experience. You don't know, at the beginning, whether you're really going to get that or not. So.
Right. Even there's a cost associated even with the free tools, right? You want something that's not just free. It's got to be, what is it? Free.
Right. Yeah. Well, like you said, hey, they ran the reports, they found the vulnerabilities, but they haven't been able to decide, assess whether, how accurate it was and which parts are relevant. And I mean, that's a huge amount of work.
So that's a good lead into a question about success metrics. Has your CISO, or maybe amongst yourselves at PSE doing this, do you have an idea of what would be a success metric where you'd say we use this Burp Suite tool, it looked like it did really well. It's going to be successful because of this. Is it just sheer numbers of vulnerabilities that it's found, or are there? I think that's one thing we struggle with is success metrics.
So I have a question on that. I want to expand on that.
From the point he just.
No, from the point she just made, that she ran the AI and found all these vulnerability in the systems, and you have to present it to the CISO. From the CISO, I would say, why do we have so many?
Yes, that was
Right?
one of his questions.
Who's not doing their job that we have that many?
So you're saying that might be a risk of like, I'm not sure I want to have the CISO use this because that might show that we're not doing a good job on the staff. Is that?
Well,
I've
no.
heard people say that. That's why I'm asking.
No, those are the stuff that has to be fixed, right? Once you find it, you have to fix it. But the question is, why didn't we fix it? All the systems should have, fix on a weekly basis, monthly basis, whatever, right? And all the patches. So we monitor all the activity, all the logs on the machine, all the traffics on the machine, things like that, right? So if you bring in an AI and it finds all that stuff, that means you have something that's broken, right? Which is good that you found it, but something must broke for it to have that many vulnerability.
Yeah, like where are the gaps? Who's not doing their job? Why are we so many
But the sense I got was that somehow the tool was smarter or more effective at finding things.
Yeah.
So it wasn't necessarily what you're getting at. It's not that they were all there and.
But we need to remediate.
There's still staff time to say, oh, I've got to remedy this now, right? Thanks, Stephen.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of related to this. I think trying to assess in some of these cases, what is considered a vulnerability, right? The CVE thing is kind of getting to be a mess. We had installed a CI/CD tool to manage our repos and stuff internally, and ran it against one of our things. It was like 1,800 vulnerabilities in CVEs, right? And you look at some of these CVEs and they're rated 7.5, but it's like, okay, wait a minute. This was a synthetically generated executable that could in theory be exploited if the linker did, no, that doesn't exist in our, sure, from a research perspective, it is a vulnerability. It is definitely something that could go wrong. Go ahead, patch it, but this isn't something that I have to stop everything and fix today. Or even is necessarily relevant to this particular environment. And so I think that's kind of on the AI side is maybe a bit of garbage in, garbage out, right? If you're not really sure that your vulnerabilities are being stored correctly, if you're not sure that they are, relevant and applicable, it's just somebody generating CVEs to sell their company. You kind of have it makes it difficult to do the job you were talking about.
So prioritizing some of, we do like a weekly qualia scan, and it's like 1,000 pages. And like I have security analysts have a very hard time prioritizing because everything looks important. So is this a case where maybe, some smarter research project in AI could help like put in human terms? This is super important because I'm just throwing that out there.
I mean, if it had context, if it had enough context about your system to know that these are relevant or not. Yeah.
Because a lot of it was, so the tool came up with the severity and it went from high, medium, low, and informational, and then false positive. So its system kind of just scanned. It didn't know which one were the important ones to the team or specifically to the company that we were working for. So it's kind of like, how do we make that system understand that, kind of tailor the tool to the actual company? So that it can give us relevant information instead of kind of selling a tool that might not, yeah.
And then does that start to get at the question you were asking?
Yeah, so
most of the stuff we have tools to do that, and then it classifies, critical, high, medium, low, right, and or informational. So there are informational stuff that we don't care about, right? There may be hundreds and hundreds of those that we don't care about, right? So for our team, if it shows up as critical, then we chase after those, right? Now there are some stuff that just comes up on high and it affects 150 machine. Now there's just one thing, but there are 150 machines that has it. Now you actually technically has 150 cases, right? So 300 something is not bad. It's just we have to distinguish what they are, right? And we don't we handle all the criticals, and then we do all the high, the medium, the low, and the information. We get to it when we get to it, right? But certainly all the critical and the high, we try to get to as soon as we can.
So you bring in these new and improved AI-based tools. You start discovering all these vulnerabilities you never knew you had. You've created more work for yourself. It's a mess to begin with because anything and everything is now considered a vulnerability. You've got to, so now you need additional tools to help you prioritize based on relevance and criticality and other factors, including making sure that it's relevant for your particular environment.
So I want to follow up a little bit on that. In terms of I see a lot of researchers who make a lot of assumptions about how people patch because they do a survey of like 10 operators. But I think sitting there, like sitting through your weekly cycles and going through this makes a huge difference. What do you feel is a good way to get feedback to researchers, whether it's, is it them like sitting there with you? Is it just more frequent communication? I feel like a lot of them don't understand the operational cycle of like, you may say, I only have a half-time security person. Critical is it, and here's the reason why. It might not be logical, but it's based on FTE count and cadence and things like that. So what is, I guess, a better way to connect people making the tools with how your human decision-making and cycles go?
I think it's
So I would say for me, to even consider the tool, I will need, I would have to make sure you have some kind of involvement hands-on with, let's say with, operators, or I would want to have that. I would want you to have that on your, resume, or hard to explain really, but I just need you to have like that human to human understanding of, okay, this is where the solution, this is how I'm gonna solve your problem, right? Because I know you and I've been working with you.
So what would that, like at PSC in particular, is there, do you get researchers that come in and sit with you or talk to you or interview you or to get some confidence?
Yeah, in certain departments, right? Not necessarily just like security, but yeah, and that's very effective.
So if I'm the researcher, the tool developer, how do I gain your confidence that I know you, that I feel you?
Well, I would want you to understand my field and what I face and what I go through.
Right. And so how can I gain that? Do you let me come sit with you and learn?
Well, communication, and it's kind of like being a mentor, right? Like you just stay in touch with your mentee and just kind of like bounce off of each other. How did your day go today? And just because we're working with time, right? So it'd be hard to come to my office all the time and understand what it is I'm doing. But if we're communicating, you're getting a feel and understanding, and you can probably implement it in your elsewhere with someone that has time.
Right, because it's
a trade-off because right, you want them to have the time, but that also takes some of your time, right? So you've got to come up with the right trade-off there. Is there a role for an AI in that relationship? I don't know. I'm just speculating, right? AI to the rescue for everything. Any other reactions to what Anita's asking about? How do you best interact between operators and researchers? Do you have any experience with that?
Oh,
all right. I knew I was possibly going to the wrong side of the room. It's all right. After lunch, I could use the exercise.
I think it's difficult because you're dealing with people who are, deal with very different sets of pressures and time pressures. So, I think a lot of the communication and a lot of going, but willingness on both sides to understand what those pressures are and what the limits are and what you can reasonably expect somebody to do, right? So, for me, I look and say, security is not an end for me, right? My job is to make sure my physicists are doing physics and winning Nobel Prizes. That's what we're doing. And I need to, do that in a secure way. But, at the end of the day, from a security perspective, they're like, oh my God, this is the most important thing in the world. And it's like, well, this is not the most, I mean, it's important, but there's a few other things we need to take care of as well. But, kind of also understanding that, from our side, it can be difficult because for your researchers, right, they're trying to understand a problem, they're trying to get papers published, they're trying to establish, good, solid, rigorous frameworks for these things. And kind of at the point when you reach operations is really when the fun part is over. And, you need to take the next steps in the research. And now here we're tied down with a bunch of tedious details about, why this system wasn't working today and my data, all those kinds of things, which need to work, but are just like the kiss of death for a lot of researchers. They just don't want to live with that because it's not always fun. and the interesting work for them is done at that point. So, being also willing to engage and say, okay, we got to kind of take it from here. So that, they are at least kept at a tolerable level of that work.
So not just different time scales, just different motivations, different things that excite them that they want to spend their time on. And so ideally you need a researcher who's able to work with you from the beginning, have that open communications, develop something that they can then go with and work with you to integrate it into your system. And that actually helps feed, right, this cycle where they gain additional insight that they can take back out and then further refine or develop that or other tools.
I think that's such an important point. Like, I don't know for how many years we hear, I just want to do this proof of concept, and we're just going to throw it to you. Tell me what you think, and I'm going to sell it. It's like,
right. The
okay.
proverbial just throw it over the wall. That doesn't work. Right. We've known that for decades now, thanks to Doug Maughan, among others, who draws these nice diagrams of broken computers on the other side of a wall.
So that doesn't build a relationship. I mean, I think it's Steve, and what you're saying is you need this, like, to trust the check-in, and so they understand the cadence of work.
Acceptance to feedback also.
Sure.
I think it's also kind of important to like deliver on your part as the researcher, right? To help me understand what it is you're really wanting to do with this research. That way I can better help you. Right? Like it shouldn't be broad as in, okay, I'm researching to like see how AI helps in security, right? Like I would have to know like what exactly it is are you gauging to get out of this conversation with me. Yeah.
I think the receptiveness to feedback is really important too. I've seen, especially like UI, UX, if you're an operator, it's very different than if it's like, in theory, this should work. So I think that's a good point too, to take back in this report, is like willingness to say, this is just not how we work. I love that.
All right. What other questions do we have? Or are there other questions that we haven't asked that might be useful to ask and think about here as a team?
Sorry. No, I think.
Hi there.
Sorry, can I just make a quick announcement?
Yep.
Um,
You want to mic?
if you're going to the social, please remember to wear your badge because that's your access to the social and it has your drink ticket.
Right.
Thank you.
Well, it's not really a question, but during like the break time, Denora and I were having a conversation that, I mean, it would kind of help to bounce ideas off of each other here instead of like the questions. Does that make sense? It's like a conversation being had. In that sense, like answers, like you will get some answers because we're actually having a conversation. But I don't know how to go about it now though.
Yeah, I hear you. So instead of a workshop to ask and answer these questions,
Yeah.
how to work together, let's
Right.
have a workshop
So
where we actually work
together,
together. And
yeah.
so, that's perhaps a good segue into something I wanted to be sure.
Sell something.
Yeah.
Any sales pitch before.
I am I'm the general chair for NDSS 2025, and we have a series of co-located workshops, including one workshop on SOC operations and construction, known as WOSOC. So this is actually put together by one of my USC ISI colleagues, a former analyst. He was here at Carnegie Mellon. He used to work in the CERT. He's worked with CISA. He has real world experience. Now he's a researcher working on operational challenges, working on test beds, among other things. And he has teamed up with this gentleman, Nolan Scaife, who is the chief threat officer or something like that at Walmart. And so he has real practical experience. And the two of them have actually been doing this workshop for a couple years now. And let me go back, and here's the call for papers. Last year, it was incredibly successful. Most of the workshops had 25 to 35 people. They had almost 50 people in their workshop. And this is what prompted me to think of it, is they actually had operators and researchers in the room who were presenting the different work that they did, and they weren't just talking past each other, they were actually talking with each other. So it was an incredible environment for having the kind of interaction that you're talking about. And so I wanted it's an appropriate time, and you just teed it up perfectly for me to share this WOSOC workshop with you. The call for papers is live now. I think the deadline is, here's the important dates, until 15 December. That's a long time. In fact, Anita, the thought occurred to me, I wonder if there's output from this discussion here that might be a possible submission.
Help to send these people. Sometimes, people don't have funding. So if Dave's offering travel support.
or offering to put a proposal into NSF to offer travel support.
I added one more thing in the.
Okay.
I added, because we're going to wrap up soon. Yeah, this is a really good workshop. I think Nolan came from academia and is now like at Walmart doing.
Yeah, he actually started at Walmart, went to academia, got a PhD, and then decided to go back to Walmart.
Wherever the document is. So I want to pull on that thread of talking to each other. Dave, you can find the document. I guess put in there, if you don't mind, if you don't mind, if there's communication media that people use to talk to each other, like there's the Trusted CI Slack, where, some people, it's not super active, but if there, I felt like this is a good way to talk to other security people. I'm on a bunch of different Slacks and Discords, just some communities intersect and overlap. But if there's suggested ones where you think that there's a lot of activity where people can have these conversations and not have to fly to a workshop, that would be really helpful to throw in that document. So there's the Trusted CI Slack. I'm sure there's others in higher ed. I don't deal with Ren ISAC, but if there's places where you all see a lot of activity, that would be really helpful to continue the conversation. Dave, you want to wrap up?
Yeah. So where else do these communities potentially align or collide or interact with each other, for better or for worse? Are there any channels?
Throw it in the document.
Any Discords out there? I'm just curious if anyone can think of anything off the top of their head.
There's a bunch of, cyber threat intel discords and Slacks, and I'm sure you all, many of you as operators are on some of these. If you think of some, that'd be great to throw on there.
Yeah. Have we gotten through all the questions? I guess we are.
Yeah, and I feel like the energy is.
Anybody have any other burning topics, thoughts, ideas that they want to share?
But it's not new, right? But a lot of stuff that we have or we use is AI already, right? All the network traffic monitoring, that's all AI. Is all the Microsoft stuff, all the login accounts. We track logged in, and we enable impossible travel, so to prevent hacked or anything like that, or account compromise, stuff like that. Those are all being tracked already, right? So that's systems already doing that. We track network anomaly. That's, those are all systems that's already been deployed. So in reality, we are involved in more AI than you think.
And is it making it?
Is it making a difference?
It does. It allowed us to.
So with the account and things like that, we because the Office 365 and any other accounts that you can log in, without being in the company and logged in from anywhere. So we tracked if we geo-filter. So if you logged in from where you're not supposed to do, it will let us know. And if your account is compromised, then the system automatically asks you to change your password. We will also get an account access, but it asks you to change your password automatically before we get to you. Things like that. So those are all things of learning. Of course, in the email system, we put flags, we put logs, we analyze whatever you sent out. We prevent PII and things like that. That's all automated stuff, and basically that's all the it's learning. That like the DLP and stuff like that. That's all being generated from some kind of source. So it's basically those are AI that we've already trained to capture stuff.
And you don't get a lot of false positives?
We get some. I mean, we get people click on links, or it identifies. So if you click on link, you're required to put in your username and password. It's gonna think that you go to the wrong site. So if multiple people click on it, then it's gonna pop up, and then it's gonna tie all the people that clicks on that email together into the report. It tells you all these people clicked in the exact time they clicked on it. And then, yes. So certain site, it requires you to put in your username and password to access, certain credential. And if more people clicked on it, and then it's going to pop up and said, hey, you want to go check it out. That would be false positive, but we want to know.
Is all that for compliance for the project? Or like what? That's a lot more than I would expect in like an open science environment.
We do a lot. The 171, the NIST 800 171 has a lot of those. But I work with the DoD also, so we just put in 800 171. And when we work with the trusted CI folks, and the science part, we didn't need to be 800 171, but since our company has already accepted it, we're not going to back out after it's already compliant.
So you just mentioned the compliance word.
Right.
So that prompted me to wonder does the introduction of all of these AI-based tools impact compliance? Is compliance ready to be able to?
Yeah, that's a lot of
handle
CIOs
these
are
types
freaking out with all the use of ChatGPT. And
Yeah, it would include lots of like adjustments and like policy. Yeah, because I mean, I'm also on the trusted CI team, right? Like framework. So, I mean, every year or every cohort, we're teaching these frameworks. So we would have to go back to the framework and readjust or maybe include AI within these frameworks.
Has there been any discussion of that yet?
I mean, just like thrown out there, right? Like
Yeah.
just surfacey. But I mean, when it gets very overwhelming, as in it just takes over, then we would have no choice.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's technology and you want to keep up with technology. So.
Okay. Last call.
The document will be open.
Yeah, the document will remain open, so
I just maybe
this
have
is
a
not the end.
have a question because I just learned about the audio AI. Has anyone like learned or kind of chatted about? I learned about that there's cameras now that can actually listen to the audio of gunshots being fired.
Shot spotter.
Okay.
In Chicago. They've had that for about a decade.
I've never heard of it. I learned of it today.
Its use is rather dubious, but
Okay.
it's supposed to triangulate and it doesn't work as advertised, let's just say.
Fireworks too.
Shot spotter,
Fireworks.
it'll be up the contract with these where I am for shot spotter.
I'm also seeing there's new AI generators out there now that will take text and create videos, short videos, text. So you give it a document, like a policy document, and it'll create a short 5-minute tutorial.
Just made one this week. I wish I had it handy. That's all right.
Yes. I mean, when you stop at technology, it's both exciting. It's like, wow, if you can create, like take a sphere documentation and create a tutorial for it, wouldn't that save us a lot of time and effort? But then on the flip side, what things that can be done, from an adversarial perspective is worrisome.
I think one solution would be like signing contracts with these companies to not sell our data, which I mean, hard to data privacy and criminalizing.
Right. So the whole data privacy, these tools taking all that data. So, all right. If there aren't any other topics, burning desires, things for the good of the cause, I think we'll officially thank everybody for being here, participating in the discussion. I know it was ideal having the recorded talk at the beginning, but I thought Brad did a great job queuing things up. And I think you all did a great job contributing to the discussion. I think we uncovered a lot of good points in all of the areas that Anita and I initially came up with, and on the fly, thought up a number of areas that either you guys raised or comments you made sort of prompted her to realize, oh, we should do this. So I think we have a good set of information that we can process. An interesting report. Maybe we'll just take the notes and put it in the chat GPT and see what it can do. So thank you very much.